So God apparently made the world in 7 days, and the self-professed god of football in Zlatan Ibrahimovic constantly said that Milan's transfer window was still at day 6, which meant something was still coming. And the latest report suggests it could be a lot. Tammy Abraham heading to Milan, Alexis Salamaker heading to Rome, Manu Kone to Milan, Ismael Bennacer to Saudi Arabia, and maybe, just maybe, a move for Adrien Rabiot to Milan. So as it turns out, these are the profiles we're going to be looking at to try and figure out which ones of these reports are rumor and which ones are real. And we'll also look at the possibility of Theo Hernandez wanting to make a move away from Milan, and Antonio Cassano calling Rafael Leao the problem at this club. So welcome to the final rumor or real episode of this transfer window. It's mostly the final episode of the summer because in a couple days I'll be heading to the US, going to Philadelphia, going to New York. So mostly I just won't have enough time to make another episode. And even this weekend's Lazio Milan fixture is going to be a live stream and no 4 takeaways. And I'm also planning a live stream for tomorrow's Champions League draw, so make sure you guys join in. And kicking things off with the first transfer story, this one's gonna be about Tammy Abraham. So at this point in time, over a month ago, the Tammy Abraham profile was being linked to Milan, and in one of the old Rumor Real episodes, I actually talked about how I felt like I saw this deal, the Tammy Abraham to Milan move, happening more likely than the Nicholas Füllkrug move happening, because this one had a player swap involved in it. Tammy Abraham's profile by some reports is considered to be more preferable because there could be a player exchange involved in it. Alexis Salamaker could make a move to Roma. Tammy Abraham comes to Milan along with some cash being sent to Roma's side. Now, initially, Alexis was the profile that was being linked to that deal, but since Fonseca came and became the coach of Milan and he started watching the players play, a lot of news reports said that he actually loved Alexis. He loved what he brought to the table, his energy, his versatility, a much more dynamic player than a lot of the players that Milan has on its team. You know, he plays as a left winger, a right winger, a left back, not so well, but he still can fill in those roles if need be. And that's the kind of player that Fonseca is known to like having in his system. But then Roma signed Dovbyk. As soon as they signed him, I started to feel like, okay, you know what? Maybe that Tammy move could actually happen now because they have a super high quality striker on their team, and Tammy's not going to get the playtime remotely as much as he wants. Earlier in the month, it was being said that Milan had a complete agreement with Tammy Abraham's entourage, but suddenly latest reports suggest that that agreement is still kind of being worked on. And in that deal, that negotiation with Roma, there have been so many profiles thrown in there. Alexis Salamaker, Noah Okafor was said to be involved. It was said that Milan swiftly rejected the inclusion of Noah Okafor in that deal. Then Milan apparently was trying to push for Calabria to be included in that deal. And it has also been said that Fonseca actually wanted Tammy Abraham before he even wanted Alvaro Morata. And usually, seeing what was happening in the preseason, a lot of us were trying to be supportive of the coach and the picks that he wanted, like Emerson Royal. But after the first 2 matches and seeing quite a subpar performance from Emerson in his Milan debut, I guess there could be some question marks amongst the fans about the coach's decision to actually want these players like Emerson Royal, like Tammy Abraham. Now, the latest reporting is that Tammy is on the verge of making a move to Milan. Apparently, the entourage has agreed for a contract till 2028. Alexis Salamaker also has reportedly found an agreement with Roma. So these are 2 players who want to make this move. Now, I think for me, the interesting part is I don't know if this was the deal that Ibrahimovic was referring to when he said we're still only on day 6. We still haven't reached day 7 of building this Milan world. But I do think that the way that the first 2 matches have sort of transpired changed Milan's approach and solidified in their minds that Tammy Abraham is a profile that they want to go for. I think it's better to say that a center forward is a profile they want to go for. Tammy Abraham just happens to fit that bill, because here's what happened in the first match, guys. It was Luka Jovic who started against Torino. He was really ineffective. Then Noah Okafor comes on and he scores a goal. Alvaro Morata comes on, he scores a goal. So suddenly there might be a little bit of a comfort feeling that, okay, we have decent strikers. Then a day after that first opening match, Alvaro Morata gets injured. Now you get those thoughts of, okay, now we only have Luka Jovic and Noah Okafor. Okay, let's try Okafor in the second match against Parma. Imagine if Okafor scored a brace. I feel like Milan's pursuit for Tammy Abraham may have softened a little bit, but because he didn't have a very good performance, and there's still a degree of confusion that Okafor is a very clear player when it comes to needing offensive help coming off the bench, but he becomes a little bit of a question mark when he's starting exactly what his role is supposed to be. I think the management realized that, okay, we definitely need a new striker. So I think it was the impact of the Luka Jovic performance in the first match, Noah Okafor performance in the second match, and the injury to Alvaro Morata that certified that a new striker has to be signed. Now, naturally, amongst the Milan fan base, this Tammy Abraham move, a lot of people don't really find it very exciting. And I think it is a fair position to hold. I think in an ideal world, the Tammy Abraham signing is actually not a bad signing at all. The way that he blew onto the scene in Serie A, the amount of goals that he scored in his first season, almost 30 goals scored for Roma. Yes, his second season was significantly slower. Then he had that injury issue. Pretty much a write-off last season. This is one of those toss-up moves that Milan is making. You hope to get the version of Tammy Abraham from a few years ago that was scoring left, right, and center for Roma. You take that chance on the possibility of that player still being there, and it costs you about 10 million euros plus Alexis Salamakers. Remember, Alexis is a player that Milan loaned out last season. This hasn't really felt like he's a part of Milan's future as much, since we've seen that they've tried to move him to Bologna, some links to Juventus, eventually to Roma. So if you can get that old version of Tammy Abraham, you don't have to spend too much. You also put in a player who might not be part of your plans and remove that salary off your books too. I think from the management standpoint, they feel like this is a chance that they're willing to take. For a lot of Milan fans, I saw Matt's tweet. It feels like, it's one of those Silvio Berlusconi end of days moves that he used to make for players that, were sort of, past their best phase. I think that is a fair critique, but also look at Martino's tweet and I kind of understand that. He is somewhat of an upgrade in the strike department for Milan. So they're taking a chance on a profile that they still believe might have his best years ahead of him because he's still only 26. And the risk of that, the payment of that is only really 10 million euros and the departure of Alexis, and not a massive price tag like 30 or 40 million like was being talked about with Artem Dovbyk or Joshua Zirkzee. So for me at this point in time, the Tammy Abraham to Milan move, we're gonna have to stamp this as real. And then there's a move for Manu Kone to Milan. Now, just like Tammy Abraham, another profile that Milan has been linked with pretty much throughout the entirety of the summer mercato. It was being said initially that Kone was a backup for the Fofana move because Kone's price tag was significantly lower. At that point in time, Fofana was rumored to be about 35 million euros and Manu Kone was said to be about 15 million euros. So that was a 20 million difference in price tag. If you look at Manu Kone's style of play, he does have the profile of a number 8. There was a point in time in his career where he also used to play as an attacking midfielder behind the striker. But over time, as his profile sort of evolved, he found his most comfortable spot to be playing as a defensive midfielder. He's said to be the player who has the ability to, hold on to the ball, make those progressive passes, but also be a strong personality, a physical personality in the back to be able to manage the opposition's midfielders and attackers. And even if you look at his value, his move to Borussia Mönchengladbach, I believe, was a 9 million euro move. At one point in time, his value, his transfer market value was peaking at 40 million euros. Last season, the guy made about 25 appearances. He got only 19 starts, scored a couple goals, assisted a couple times as well. Now, he did also turn down a contract extension with his club. I believe he still has a contract till 2026. So it's not expiring right away. Borussia Mönchengladbach's sporting director did come out and say that Kone has already let the club know that he wants to leave and he won't be signing an extension with them, but they haven't found an agreement with any club yet. We do have some conflicting reports. Tutto Sport said that in the German media, it is being said that Milan and Borussia Mönchengladbach are working on a deal around that 25 million mark. At least that's the price that the club wants, including bonuses. However, Gianluca Di Marzio came out and said that both Milan and Roma, who are also interested in the player, have come out and said that we're not going to be paying anything more than 15 million euros. And I think the biggest caveat of Manu Kone to Milan is the Rossoneri need to sell players. There's no way that they're going to pay 15, 25, whatever million for this player if Bennacer is still at the club. So at this point in time, with the Bennacer move not completed yet and, conflicting reports coming out about that too, I think the Kone to Milan move I think it's possible. I think it can happen. But with the Fofana deal done, I think Milan might not be as desperate to sign this player if somebody like Bennacer is unable to find a move to Saudi Arabia. Which brings us to Ismael. Now, there's always been this voice of his agent lurking in the background talking about how at some point in time, time Bennacer is going to make a move to Saudi Arabia. I think that was always on the cards due to economic reasons. I think also partially due to religious reasons, but they also consistently said that not yet. It's not going to happen yet. Well, that not yet might not actually turn into a right now, because there have been reports linking Saudi pro club Al Qadsiya to Ismael Bennacer. There were reports that said that they were willing to pay him 15 million euros a season, which would essentially quadruple the guy's salary at Milan. And there were rumors of 30 million, 40 million, what they would be willing to pay to Milan to get the player on their team. However, some recent reports are now saying, and Al Qadsiya's management apparently has come out and said that our international players slot is now complete. We can't sign any more players, so we're not going to be signing Bennacer. So is it possible that there's a different club from the Saudi Pro League that is negotiating with Milan for him? It's tough to say definitively right now, but Nicolo Schira has come out and said that if Milan can get an offer on that 30 million mark, his release clause in general is 50 million euros. But if Milan can get a deal around 25 even, maybe 30 million euros, they might consider selling Bennacer. And I think it kind of makes sense. And I think, quite honestly, this would be a very happy breakup, because if you look at it, he's been here for half a decade. During that time, he joined the club as a young midfielder. He ended up becoming a Serie A champion. He then had injury issues. And during that period of time, Milan has signed some good quality midfielders, specifically a player who resembles Bennacer from 3 years ago a lot, which is Tijani Reinders. And I think this arrival of Tijani Reinders makes it easy for Milan to actually part ways with Bennacer. And if the club can in the process get 30 to 40 million euros, the player can get 10 to 15 million in salary, I think this would actually be a very happy breakup. So unlike the Çalhanoğlu and Kessie departures that Milan was unable to fill in, this one actually already has a player that would fill in that role. However, with the conflicting reports coming from Saudi Arabia about who's actually interested in him, I wonder if this move is actually going to happen. And then there's a profile of Adrien Rabiot. Now, in the final days of the transfer window, that's really where the Mercato coups actually happen. And Rabiot might be one of those. Milan have offered him a salary of 5.5 million. His present salary, his salary while he was playing for Juventus was 7.5 million. Apparently, he walked away from a contract extension. He wanted more from another club. And even though he's a free agent who can actually sign for a club even after the transfer window shuts, I'm sure there's a slight degree of panic within his camp as to why another club hasn't come in and, maybe offered the amount of money that he wanted, which is where there's a possibility that he might want to go to a place he's more comfortable with, which would be Serie A. And if no other clubs are offering him a contract, maybe he'll take Milan's deal. And just like the Manu Kone deal being dependent on the Bennacer departure, I think Rabiot's arrival is also completely dependent on Bennacer's departure. Because think about it, if Milan can sell Bennacer for around 30 million, 35 million, maybe a little bit less, and they also save up on that 4 million salary that he takes every year, that's going to open up the funds for somebody like Rabiot. He's also a player who has, serious international experience. He has serious experience in Serie A. He's played here for years. He also has that French connection, just like Fofana did with Theo Hernandez, with Mike Maignan. So as long as his camp is willing to give a discount on his salary, this deal can actually happen. And at this point in time, with only a few days left in the transfer window and the season progressing already, I think you'd have to say that, his camp would be open to a negotiation on his salary. I would stamp this as possible as well. And then it comes to the sudden possible departure of Theo Hernandez, not right now, but maybe in the future. It is being reported that his entourage wants a contract extension of 8 million. And Milan is willing to offer 6 million, which would keep him significantly under Rafael Leao's salary. And for that reason, and because of a possible change of scenery, Theo is actually open to making a move away, and he himself has considered a move to Real Madrid or to Bayern Munich. The one thing that I'd say to Milan fans about this is, his contract expires in 2026. Let's not panic about this. Let's stay a little bit more relaxed. Whenever Milan goes through a tough time in terms of results, these kinds of news stories always start to bubble. Suddenly you go through a good string of outcomes and these news stories go away. This happened throughout the entirety of Rafael Leao's contract extension year. He himself was having a good season, but Milan itself wasn't having a good season. Anytime the results would go up, it would be, oh, look, Leao's so happy. He's smiling all the time. When the results would go down, it would all be about, oh, Leao doesn't want to extend with Milan anymore. And in spite of having a pretty weak season after the championship year, the guy extended his contract till 2028. So with Theo, there were also some reports saying that he was not happy with the departure of Paolo Maldini, which I actually completely believe, but I think every single player will want to stay in a winning project. So that's the key for Milan. It's not about Theo staying or Leao staying or anyone else leaving. It's more about how do you create a project that is actually winning, that incentivizes players to stay with you because they're lifting trophies with you. So for now, I'll tell Milan fans, don't panic. He's not going anywhere. But to the Milan management, I would say start acting. get the right acquisitions, bring the right players in, elevate your results, add to your trophy cabinet, or your top players eventually will want to leave. And then there's addressing these comments of Antonio Cassano about Rafael Leao. And guys, I'll be honest, most of the times when Cassano talks about Leao, it just seems excessive. It seems like he doesn't actually mean what he's saying. He's just being aggressive and he's kind of just putting on a show for the cameras. Even his own panelists a lot of the times don't agree with him. But when it comes to this statement, I don't think Cassano is completely off mark. He started off by saying that Leao is a problem. He talked about Ronaldinho at Barcelona. You know, when he was on, it was easy. But when he didn't track back, the club had a defensive setup that allowed him to focus solely on attacking. But in Milan's case, Milan has fragility in their midfield and in their defensive line. And this is the part that I actually agree with. If Leao wants to play like that, he needs to be decisive all the time. I'm gonna ignore the last two sentences about Leao doesn't know how to shoot, he doesn't know what it means to know how to play football. Obviously for me, these are the excessive comments. But the part where he says that if Leao wants to play like that, he needs to be decisive all the time, that is absolutely accurate. Because if you're not going to track back and help out in defense, and the team is going to have to play, you know, a 10-man defensive line or 9-man defensive line alongside Mike Maignan, when you then get the ball and you get a chance to start and launch an attack because of your pace and because of your physical strength, you can get past multiple defenders. When you get in a one-on-one situation with the goalkeeper, or you're in the final third of the field and you're facing the goal, you have to be decisive. You have to hit the back of the net. You have to get the shot on target, or you have to be more precise with the pass that you make for a teammate. It can't be, you know, lackadaisical, lazy, lethargic stuff. Because if he's not going to help out defensively, which I actually do understand for his attacking quality and pace that he has, why do you want him standing right next to Theo Hernandez? You want him almost at the halfway point. So as soon as he can get the ball on a transition, he can just launch out and attack the opposition. But when he's making that attack, it better be decisive. It better end in a goal. Otherwise, you're not winning on either ends with Leao. And you guys let me know in the comment section, do you agree with Antonio Cassano and what he's saying about Leao? Which part do you specifically agree with? And there you have it, Milanisti. Those are the profiles and stories we wanted to take a look at today. Again, keep in mind this weekend there's not going to be any 4 takeaways for the Lazio Milan match. I'm going to be live streaming. I'll probably be live streaming tomorrow as well for the Champions League draw. So make sure you guys join in. In parting, I'll say this: if Bennacer makes a move away from Milan and the Rossoneri are able to sign someone like Manu, Kone, or Adrien, Rabiot, maybe both, and make the addition of Tammy Abraham and Alexis Salamakers goes the other way, I think that is a definite upgrade to Milan's squad than what we had last season. Now it's on the coach to make those pieces individually work as a collective unit. And from my side, as always, Forza Milan, grazie mille, ciao tutti. Did you know Benito Mussolini put an end to the existence of Inter Milan? And the only reason why AC Milan is called what it is because of the fascist leader? What led to the breakup of AC Milan and Inter Milan in that restaurant behind the Duomo is fascinating in itself. But what is even more fascinating